Welcome aboard on a voyage to the Indian countryside. A journey across the pulsating life of Indian people. A travel through the cultural ethos of rural India. Because it is said, and you will agree, that India lives in its villages. The past 50 years have witnessed tremendous change. The villages are not isolated and secluded as they were 50 years ago. Thanks to new roads, bridges, rail tracks, and transport system, they have been interwoven into a more homogeneous unit. If a bus can be seen plying on a dusty rural road, so can a bullock cart on a metalled highway. It will certainly not be an unusual sight to see horse-driven carts and trucks, jeeps and cars, or even elephants striving for space on the same road. And if the cattle too jostle for space on the road, do not get into an argument which you are certain to lose. Even though highways are laid away from townships to facilitate the smooth flow of long-distance vehicles, gradually these end up getting sandwiched between new dwellings, thus, once again, restricting the movement of fast-moving vehicles. However, an average Indian is quite content with the slow pace of the vehicular traffic and the life itself. Take this young lad for instance. To an outsider, he may appear a trifle silly riding a buffalo, but a tractor or a scooter would not be good substitutes for him, as his buffalo serves a dual purpose. In fact, the multiplicity of purpose could be termed a significant aspect of Indian village life. Perhaps this is why, even today, oxen are among the most popular cattle in the villages. From threshing the grains, to tilling the fields, or from extracting sugarcane juice, to drawing water from the well, oxen have their role to play. Still, the ox-loving and cow-adoring Indian farmer has come of age and is much better equipped, technically as well as financially. On your way, you may witness the cattle and machine ploughing fields or threshing grains side by side. If the Indian farmer has been eager to adopt modern techniques, he also has been reluctant to discard traditional methods. In fact, nothing is discarded till it can be put to use. And this effort to extract the maximum out of all men and material is born not simply of need and necessity, but it emanates from an ethos which enjoins that everything on this earth is the creation of God, and wastage is an insult to the Almighty. Adaptability to change is yet another feature of today's rural India. And these changes are not only adapted to lifestyles, but are even tailored to suit the rural requirements. For instance, butter is still a symbol of household prosperity rather than a business proposition. And the very act of churning out butter is part of the folklore and religion, an area where entry of new elements is normally discouraged. But here, in the holy land of Kurukshetra, in the prosperous state of Haryana, we have a locally devised electric butter churner, and the women of the house are rather comfortable with it. Still, the traditional butter churner has not been discarded because of the new entrant. And did you notice that the rural women prefer to sit down and operate their modern gadgets, rather than stand and work as would be common in urban India? No doubt, electricity has changed the lifestyles of rural India. Power failures apart, a large number of Indian villages do have electricity today. Electric poles have been erected and wires drawn across the length and breadth of the country. Still, the generation as well as distribution of power is far from satisfactory, and people have to rely heavily on alternative sources of energy. So, if an electric machine is employed to extract juice from sugarcane, the juice in turn is cooked on a coal-based stove or the chula. Though the jaggery thus produced is as savory as the finest of sweetmeats you can get anywhere in the world. The Western world knows India as a starving poor country of backward farmers who have agricultural practices and tools which are as old as the profession itself. But that is just a part of the real story, rather a very small part of the actual picture. Yes, we did see bare hands weeding and handling crops, but then did we also not see modern techniques being employed with similar dexterity and skill? A tractor in the field is hardly a surprise now, nor is a thresher or a water pump, or, for that matter, even a combine harvester. The so-called conservative Indian farmers are managing modern-day tools with effortless ease and skill, which only comes with practice. There has been a huge green revolution sweeping the agriculture sector for the past couple of decades. The Indian farmer, using all techniques and tools, has been extracting 5 to 10 times the yield from his land compared to what he was getting about 3 decades back. Additionally, he has also been cropping and reaping not 1, but 2 to 3 crops every year. He may still be handicapped by natural calamities like flood and drought, but now these do not leave him defeated. With his untiring endeavor and sustained support from the government, the Indian farmer has been able to keep his aspirations afloat. Even fallow lands are being brought under cultivation. Take this land in a remote village of central India, for instance. Hardly a few years ago, people of the area suffered from paucity of water round the year, whereas now they have reclaimed the land through watershed management, and water is now available for the parched land even in the dry months. Lakhan Lal Verma, a small farmer from Madhya Pradesh, recalls that earlier they could produce only crops like bajra because of the great shortage of water. Now, with the watershed coming up in the area, they produce even wheat and sugarcane. They also have ample water for drinking and bathing. If watersheds have proved fruitful in this part of India, the elaborate canal system has enriched other parts of the country. These all have contributed to the success of the Green Revolution. It may not be extraneous to add that in India, family bonds still provide the best of social securities that any developed nation can boast of. Even in their quest for material gains, country folk have not dropped the larger family ties, nor have they abandoned the social customs. They still manage to take time out for the family. A humble farmer would attach a trolley to his tractor to make room for the entire community. Be it for a social visit or a trip to the town market or the Mela. With people's aspirations so high and fulfillment so deep, could the banking sector remain detached? Even the remotest of Indian villages today enjoy the fruits of modern banking. While these banks assisted in replacing the traditional money lender and acted as catalysts of growth, no one expected such excellent savings habits from the villagers. R.S. Meena of Canara Bank in Siwan district of Bihar states that prior to the opening of this branch here, the living standards of the people was below average. The bank helped them by granting loans under various government schemes and providing them with employment opportunities. It also aided people to go abroad for a livelihood. The results have been exemplary, as these people are now repatriating coveted foreign currencies.
Almost total deposit in our branch pertain to foreign currency.
It would be amazing to note that this rural bank branch in the so-called backward state of Bihar has savings of 250 million rupees today. The flip side of the healthy savings habit is investment, and the villagers are investing heavily in the future of their children. Their demand has forced the best of schools from the nearby town to send special buses to pick up children from here. And the children? Well, they have dreams of their own and a newfound confidence.
I live in this village Khalispur, and I am right now in Aligarh Muslim University studying in 12th PCB Science, and I am studying for MBBS.
If education has been a key to unlock the information boom, the reverse flow from increased information to improved literacy levels is also self-evident. The literacy growth has led from makeshift schools to larger buildings. And when even these have failed to accommodate the swelling number of students, they spilled out on the courtyards. But education continued nonetheless. Thanks to this increased awareness, the villager is now socially conscious and politically alert. He's not averse to closing ranks, be it on the basis of traditional caste system or on regional considerations. In order to disseminate power up to the last person in the democratic hierarchy, the age-old Panchayati Raj system, which had been cast aside in British India, has now been revised and revitalized. Where once elders of the village sat down to tackle various issues, now members of the Panchayat are duly elected and recognized by the Indian Constitution. The Panchayati Raj system has also empowered women, who have probably performed even more creditably. Shrimati Geeta Singh Rathore, a Sarpanch or the chairperson of the village Panchayat, discloses that it is for the first time that the villagers have elected women to the Gram Panchayat. 4 have been elected for the post of Panch, whereas 1 for the post of Sarpanch. Earlier, women were exploited, but there was no one to hear their plea. Now, at least the women will lend a sympathetic ear to their fellow sisters. If the benefits of the Panchayati Raj were evident in Madhya Pradesh, so was the worthiness of the experience in the South Indian state of Kerala, in the words of D.K. Singh, Collector, Kollam.
People discuss their problems in smaller groups, in Gram Sabhas. They discuss their resources, the limitations of the village, and what can be done about the development of the village. People decide the priority areas, and accordingly they prepare Vikasanam Ruuprekha, guidelines of the development, and each Panchayat in Kerala has prepared this document. Based on that, they have prepared their annual budget, and accordingly the development works are going on.
These experiments in decentralization of power would not have been successful without an extensive communication network. various means of communication have brought a political, social, as well as cultural revolution. Not only are the post offices commonplace, but even telephone booths can now be found in almost every nook and corner. All these help to keep rural India in touch with the world. Urban folk would be surprised to see the number of antennas on the rooftops of rural homes. As there is television in almost every household, we also have dish antennas over hutments. These have mushroomed like religious centers in every village, where even a stray stone could be worshipped or turned into a full-fledged temple. Actually, these places of worship are not confined to religious activities alone, but are agog with social and economic functions as well, be it a community gathering or a festival or a marriage. The traditional wedding, where once proper pronunciation of mantras and purity of the rituals was paramount, today, even while retaining its revered value, has adopted modern practices. For instance, a video camera can now be seen capturing bodies swaying to popular Hindi film songs in a marriage ceremony. Now the ritual of sending off the bride in a dolly is not followed with such fervor, as people prefer a motorized car to the traditional carriage. And those who cannot afford a car would rather settle for an auto rickshaw. After all, is it too not motor-driven? Likewise, though the bride is still attired in traditional bridal outfits, yet the cloths that were once hand-woven are now mass-produced by machines. The Indian woman today is not merely a coy follower of the male. She is very often the better half, literally. Take the traditional art of Madhubani paintings, for instance, which has been dominated by female artists from time immemorial. It has a huge demand in the international market. Specific to India and special to the world, this traditional form of art is a fashion statement of its own in the interior of a posh house. Madhubani paintings climb down from the walls to the canvas and onto textiles, as the art attained commercial value. Market demands also led to vegetable dyes being replaced by artificial pigments, and what was traditionally a female preserve saw the entry of males. But still, women are past masters of the art and have won laurels at the national as well as international levels. If demand has led the Madhubani paintings towards commercialization, so has it propelled the fishing industry towards modernization. Powerful trawlers swarm the sea in large numbers. Still, if these have been unable to replace the country boats, it is because demand outstrips the supply. With almost no clash of interest between the traditional and the modern, Indian fishermen are employing all kinds of techniques. Thus, if we have motorized boats steaming into the harbour with a large catch, we also have fishermen struggling against the sea with their nets cast wide. Backed by the government, inland fishing has also developed tremendously over the years.
Government gave me subsidy in 1995.
Vikram Singh Raghuvanshi of Hoshangabad in Madhya Pradesh says that the government gave him subsidy. With the government's support and guidance, he has employed modern tools and techniques and has been able to increase its production manifold.
My production is going on better, so I improve my form further.
Though this may not be true for all the industries. For instance, even with all the modern tools and techniques at hand, the labor-intensive coir industry has failed to ameliorate. Its ailment can largely be attributed to the huge outflow of labor force to the Gulf and other countries. Whereas the entire process of treating coir is extremely tedious, demanding and exhausting, its products do not command a comparable price. No wonder it is difficult to find labor for this business, especially when the men have better paying alternatives at that. There is certainly better money available in the Gulf, and this explains the large outflow of semi-skilled and unskilled labor from the Indian countryside to these countries. But instead of indulging himself in a regal lifestyle there, the ever-contented Indian labor would rather repatriate income to his family back home. Needless to say, this repatriated foreign exchange plays a good part in developing the standard of living in Indian villages. Such monies are also being brought by a number of non-government organizations to rural India. Supported by international agencies, these organizations are helping to improve the health, education, and infrastructure in rural India. Even some townsfolk are now returning to their roots. Lakshman Prasad Singh of Kanta Seva Kendra in Bihar says,
"There has been a great change in my village, in agriculture as well as in culture. And this change is possible due to education, due to communication and due to electrification in my village. And this was done through us as we left the city and came to my village for this change."
That in itself is probably the most emphatic statement establishing the degrees to which the face of the Indian village has changed. And this process continues. Yes, India itself is changing. For did we not say that India lives in its villages?